Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of my YouTube build of the Speedline model Bluebird K7. It's my intention in this video is to apply some detail to the main body of the vessel. In that way I'm going to scribe some panel lines across the body itself and look at putting some rivet detail along those lines and along the hull itself. In that respect, I haven't yet attached the hull base to the hull top because what I intend to do is reinforce where I'm going to scribe these lines by using some white sheet styrene, and from that I've cut some 10mm strips which I'll use on the inside just to reinforce the hull, just because we're doing the scribing. We're probably not going to go right through when we scribe, but just to make sure and be on the safe side, I'm just going to reinforce the inside. Since the last video, I've sat and had a look at a few pictures on this, and I've been debating about this line along here, and I couldn't tell whether or not it was actually in use. I'll just scribe it so you can see a little bit better. I couldn't work out whether or not it was actually there. That one there, see that? If it's matched up to the hull, you can see that the shape of the hull, it actually matches the shape of the hull there. Now, looking on some photographs of, first of all, the real thing, just down here, it doesn't seem to be present on there, and this one is a replica of Bluebird. It's also missing from there. So I think actually what we can do is actually cut that part off. I've already done it that side and it does match up a lot better. The instructions weren't too clear on that, but I think that's the proper shape. That's the shape it should be. So cut that part off, and as we did in the last video, we can file that seam down. Right, what I'm going to do then is stick these parts in, and for that, when I find it in my model box, I should just actually be using some tube cement. Can spread this out further, spread it onto the two parts, and then we can glue it in. I've taken the measurements from these panel lines by using the box lid. The box lid does show the vessel at its full size, and these are the panel lines here that I'm going to scribe. So I've matched those up, measured them across, and also cross-referenced it with the wing on the back, so it sort of all matches up there like that. We're not going to stick this on right till the end really. So we can get on with gluing the first reinforcing bars, reinforcing parts onto the inside. As for the rivet detail, I have a few ideas in my head just at the moment. I'm going to experiment once I've got this in to the best way about it. There's a traditional way of doing it with some drops of super glue. I'm going to try something else. If it works, it will work. If it's a disaster, we won't work it, and we'll go back to the original idea of some super glue, which is a bit long and laborious. So we'll just cut this piece off, spread the glue, and on the inside as well. Just in the general area. As I say, this is only just belt and braces, just to make sure that we're not going to weaken the plastic when we scribe these lines. We wouldn't want to get the model finished, put it all together, somebody move it on the display stand and it all falls apart. So that one. can go inside there and it'll hold itself in. Don't need to be too worried about the mess on the inside, it's not going to be seen. Just make sure it lies down, just hold it for a little bit. Just make sure it's lined up with the lines. There. We're going to carry on with that. The rivet lines will go along here and over the top. So the longer pieces, I've got some longer pieces, they'll be put down onto the inside to go right round and follow the line on the inside. So I'll carry on with that and we'll get back to you in a few moments and we'll have a look at scribing the lines, looking how we're going to do that. Okay then, that's what we've done now. I've put the reinforcing strips on the inside and their glue's all set. I've also rubbed down the outside of the hull just to take that bit of a shine off it. That's in preparation for the painting, because if we go on to this next step of scribing the panel lines, we don't then want to have to rub it all off by just rubbing it down and just keying the surface for some paint. So we've done that now. The little green dots that you can see around the hull is just really an indication of where the reinforcing strips are inside. That's quite easy to do just by holding it up to the light. You can actually, I don't know if you could see it through the video, you can actually see through the hull where the reinforcing strips are, and they're just a guide. I've done them in a green just so that when I come to the final marking I can do that in a different colour, so I can mark out where the rivets are going to go. Now for the panel lines, what we're going to do, we're going to scribe some panel lines. We're going to do it across the top first to indicate the panel that lifts out so they could service the engines and such. The way we're going to do this is, first of all, we're going to measure it all off quite accurately about where you're going to go. I took the guide from the back there, using, as we saw before, I used the lid, the diagram on the box lid as a guide to where the panel lines are. I've then stuck some just simple dyno tape just across the top. I found that this is ideal for marking panel lines. It's flexible, it's thick, and it sticks itself down so you can use your scribe to mark the panel lines out. Now then, what I use for scribing my panel lines are a dentist's probe. You can pick these up at some model shops or model fairs, something like that. I think I got this one at a model fair. You can also use a thick needle, something out the sewing box, something like that. And all we need to do with this is gently follow the line of the dyno tape. We don't need any pressure on it. This is a bit of a trick taken from the aero modelers, model aeroplane builders. You just use the scribe just to guides against the dyno tape as a guide. What I've found is by putting the hull into the boat, it does actually firm it up and doesn't make it as flexible, so you can use the dyno, the scribe, to scribe out the panel lines. Just take a few passes. It's not deep, you don't press, you just let the scribe take the plastic away. As I say, that's why we put the reinforcing strips in, as we're taking plastic out of the hull, and we don't really want to weaken the structure. Now you can see just very slightly it's almost a dust. It's just a dust that's coming out. Just scribe it round. Eventually it'll make a groove, and the scribe will follow its own path. Later on, when we come to paint this, we'll highlight these lines and do some pre-shading. Once again a trick taken from the aircraft modelers. It just gives the paint scheme an extra dimension. Highlights some of the model and just takes the blandness off it. It really works well. As you can see, it's just taking a fine dust off. Just let the scriber or whatever tool you've got just do all the work. No pressure, and there's a fine dust. We're going to focus now. It's not going to focus for us. There's a fine dust on the end of the... I've done this one earlier so we could take it off and have a look at the finished result. This is the forward one I've done. At this stage you can just see that they're there, whether you can see it through the video. Try and get the light on it. You can see the panel line scribed in there. If you find it's not quite deep enough yet, we don't need the dyno tape because it will follow its own line. Just take your time, just clean it out. No, that's all there is to panel lines. So we've got the two panel lines across the top there, and then we've got another panel line running the full length of the hull. So I'll get on with those, and then we'll come back and have a look at doing the rivets. Okay, you join me in this part as I'm working on the rivet detail on this model. What I've done, I've marked out just below the lines that we've scribed earlier, the panel lines, about 2mm down. I've drawn a pencil line, runs parallel with this panel line, just about 2mm down each end, so it's nice and parallel. And then using a spacing of about 5mm, I thought that looked about right. I've drilled a hole in each of those locations. Then about 3 or 4mm down from that, I've done a second row, exactly the same, and I'm just putting in the final couple of holes with a small pin drill. Really easy, really quick to do, just a bit laborious, just to get them all in and just making sure that they're all nice and straight. And we're going to use these as spacings for the rivet detail. Okay, that's that row done. I've gone across the top as well and done down the other side. All I've got left to do at the moment is work around the bow of that, and then do the same again on the hydroplanes. Okay, then what we're going to use for rivets is nothing more exotic or nothing, but dressmaking pins. Ideal. They're probably, I think, a little tiny bit overscale, but I think once they're painted, they will sort of reduce themselves in size, sort of visually. They'll blend in with the background. You'll find that in a box of pins there is quite a variation of sizes of heads on the pins. You maybe need to sort through until you get the right sort of sizes that you want. You'll tell by eye just whether it's too big or too little. But these I've sorted out a box full of what I needed. Then what I've done is actually don't need. Where's that pin gone? If I can find it. You don't need the whole length of that pin. So we're taking a pair of just simple wire cutters. You just cut them down until they're about rivet size. There we go. Then all you do is just place them in and we get this sort of effect. If you can see right along there. Simple to do. Put the top row in if the boat's the right way up. Put the top row in first, and then on the inside run a line of super glue down them all, and that will hold them in place firmly. Then do the same again on the bottom row and run some super glue down there as well. And then if they're still a little bit long, just trim them to size. The reason you do the top and then the bottom is just so you can get the glue in, really, just to see what you're working on. And then continue all the way along, just putting your pins in. A bit fiddly, as I say, it takes the time. There is another way to do this, and that is just by using some thick super glue and just putting a dab on every interval with a cocktail stick. Once again, that's quite time consuming. I think with using these dressmaking pins, even if they are a tiny bit oversized, they're still fairly consistent, and they will look more consistent than perhaps dabbing on super glue dabs as we go along. But you have a try, see what you think. Maybe experiment on a piece of scrap first. And decide which way you want to go. Anyway, I'll get on with this and then we'll come back and we'll carry on with the next part. Okay, there. Well, that's taken a bit of time, but it's all coming together. What you can see now is we've got the rivet detail in using the dressmaking pins. We've gone over the top as well, just following the panel lines, and across on the other side. What I think I'll do next is I'll take the sponsons and just run a line of rivets along the outside of them, just to give it some detail and break up the monotony of the blank plastic. Finally, for the hull part, just at the moment, I've cut a 22mm hole in the back where the jet engine would sit. There wasn't really anything in the plans, in the instructions, to say what size exactly, but I've judged it by eye, and I think about a 22mm diameter hole would suit. I've gone on to make the jet, the cowling itself, and I've made this a tube from a piece of litho plate. Now, litho plate may be a little bit difficult to get. It's a very thin aluminium sheet used in the printing industry. A lot of printers it's going out of fashion with a lot of printers now, so it may be a little bit difficult to get. However, you could do the same thing with some very thin brass, or even just some plastic card. This is some black plastic card I've got. You could roll it up, use some hot water just to hold the shape, and then glue that, and then add that to the inside. However, I'll be using this. It's just something that through the modelling years I've managed to find in store. That'll go in there, then it'll be glued inside just to hold it secure. Anyway, that's all for this video now. When we come back, we'll be doing some more on it. We'll be looking at putting the sponsons on, some detail on the tail plane, and then we'll be looking to put the base in. I haven't put the base in just yet, as I've got to decide some ways of putting some fixings into it for displaying it on a display stand, but we'll look at that when we get to that stage. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. This is the end of part 2. Come back and look out for part 3, which will be coming along soon. Thank you.